powered by NEI Global Relocation. This is Relocation Leader, the podcast where we help advanced professionals in the world of global mobility. Now, here's your host, Zac Turbes.
Welcome to another episode of Relocation Leader. I'm your host, Zac Turbes, and today we're going to be talking innovation with Tom Fleming from AltoVita. Tom is the Director of Client Development at AltoVita, and we are super happy to have you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about AltoVita, kind of what you guys are doing, and just maybe some of the innovations that have happened over the last couple of years for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I've been looking forward to this. So so AltoVita are an accommodation agency, very much tech focused. I think we sort of pride ourselves on our agility and kind of ability to adapt because of our kind of tech focused outlook. A lot of our sort of innovations over the last couple of years have mainly been with our kind of integrations and more recently with a number of kind of AI features. Over the past year, we have focused a lot on AI, particularly to kind of improve internal processes and to remove some of that administrative burden. We've also been working actually quite closely with a number of your teams on a number of products. Actually, one that had direct involvement with AI, we've built a match feature with you guys directly from the feedback from your teams, which is actually an AI powered tool looking at how closely the property options we share match what your clients need. So that was quite a cool one, and had quite a your direct input, but also kind of direct improvement for the teams, which was quite fun. There's a lot of other sort of, I guess, smaller bits and pieces, but we've launched things like EcoStats, where we can see the CO2 output. We've launched various other kind of tools. We had a guest experience app, was a big one last year now. So the guests, when they move in and before their arrival, can basically get everything, all their details on an app at their fingertips, as opposed to kind of going through their emails. And so just trying to bring that process more into the modern day.
I was wondering if you can give me sort of a rundown on what you guys started with in terms of what you offered from the very beginning, and then sort of how that evolved through the years, and then just kind of tell me a little bit about why is tech a big thing in accommodation?
Sure. So AltoVita started in 2018, so it wasn't like we started sort of hundreds of years ago. But I think the focus at that time was to try and bring the temporary accommodation part of the accommodation piece kind of into the 21st century. At that point, a lot of work was still very much either by kind of phone or email, so it was still very kind of admin heavy, particularly for relocation consultants and kind of account executives, but also for the supply chain of temporary accommodation agencies as well, who are still, as I said, having to do everything via email. So the initial premise was, as I said, to try and automate a lot of that process to really speed things up, essentially knowing that when it comes to temporary accommodation, really the clients want things as quickly as they can. They want their employees to have, availability, live availability, kind of like Booking.com and Airbnb, which obviously by that point were, up and running and incredibly popular. So that was the kind of initial premise. As with all companies, it started small and grew. I think AltoVita actually originally started to focusing on actually the sort of B2C, so looking at directly to consumer. But I think following a bit of a chance inquiry for a global mobility request, then pivoted to the relocation industry. We kind of initially focused, I think, on Europe and had about 400 providers within our platform at first. I said that was back in 2019 by this point. COVID then reared its head. Now for AltoVita, this was actually a bit of a blessing in disguise, because obviously slightly fortuitously we were quite well set up, given everyone was working from home. AltoVita was already a remote company, so operationally it didn't impact us kind of directly, and actually gave us that sort of time, but also the demand at that point to then really kind of grow. So over the next couple of years, we were focused on taking on and integrating with a lot more providers. Actually came out of COVID in a really strong position with a much wider network, and that's when we kind of then started to expand actually with NEI as well into some of the other regions that we now operate in. So as I said, the focus was very much to speed up the process for the global mobility industry. Obviously, that is something we're still working on. I know one of the points we're going to touch on is some of the challenges. All of the service departments, they all kind of have different technologies that we have to integrate with, and that is not always as simple. I'm not necessarily the tech guy, but I know that there's various different the channel managers and other things we have to integrate with, and they all have their kind of different nuances, and that is still an ongoing project, but that is something we're growing literally month on month to connect with.
What do they value most about what you've been able to offer, and what has been the most impressive point or data point when you look at it?
So how we've been able to, I guess, help the clients, and what certainly we kind of hear from them is the speed the speed is always what it comes down to. I mean, cost is cost. That's always an important thing. But of course, every I guess, service provider in the mobility space is trying to be as efficient as possible when it comes to cost. But I think it is that agility. When we have clients where we work with kind of their preferred providers and do have them all connected, so they can see live availability and rates, which has been a bit of a point of difference for us. And I think that's where, again, some of the clients have been quite impressed with that. Just touching on our kind of like eco-stats feature, although I know most service providers have that, the impressive thing with that is that's something that was kind of born out of a client demand. I think we built within about 2 or 3 weeks, which of course, I mean, even I was quite impressed with. Again, not being on the tech side, I hadn't seen in my kind of previous companies things being built that quickly. But I think certainly that what I think impresses, or at least what impresses me, and therefore I hope what impresses clients, is some of the connectivity piece between our self-service tool where we build out the preferred options for them and kind of can actually have everything essentially fully integrated, so we can have their employees can have a self-service tool, and it's actually a different model to what I used to work with when I was working at RMC, which was the sort of more traditional request and back and forth model that we use. Yeah.
That's another thing I wanted to talk about. You talked about speed. I know that there's got to be a balance, but you guys, as far as I understand it, have been able to kind of spin up different products really quickly. So I was wondering if you kind of talk a little bit about that, a little bit about sort of mindset or, principles, what really goes into innovation. And I know that our audience, like they may not be building tech, but we all have things that we can improve on.
It's a mindset. It is a bit of a culture, I think, which is very much fostered. So yeah, I mean, we have an excellent product team who build things very quickly, and it's only becoming faster with now the use of AI, which allows them to build prototypes within a day rather than it taking weeks or maybe months. AI is certainly not the sort of magic. We can create sort of a fully working product, but at least it allows us to get to that kind of testing and testing phase significantly quicker, so that, let's say, again, to use the match criteria feature that we built with NEI, it meant we can quite quickly get on a call, have a sort of a prototype, and then have you as our client or other clients sort of actually give the direct feedback, start testing it, start finding weaknesses or area improvements that we can then go away and work on really quickly. I think, however, the main mindset piece is that we also try to look kind of outside of just our own industry. A good example of this actually is our head of our product team, Anton, went with Vivi, who's our CEO, to a Microsoft event last year to kind of understand what they were doing, appreciating that they are significantly more long-standing company that we are in the technology space. And actually, out of that, we ended up building some of the Microsoft plugins, and actually changing some of our internal processes with the sort of use of some AI tools, based on some of the things that the Microsoft teams were speaking about at this workshop last year. So yeah, as I said, it is a bit of a mindset, and I think the key for our teams is we're not just looking at necessarily the relocation industry, we're looking at kind of the wider technology space to see where we can almost cherry pick things that would work in relocation. Not everything's going to work. What Tesla are doing with, or SpaceX are doing is not necessarily going to work for relocation, of course. But as I said, there might be something that NVIDIA or Microsoft might be doing in one of their departments that we could go, oh, actually, that fits for a general kind of workflow that could be improved. So that's how I think our team are quite good at bringing that knowledge in from the outside and then looking at where it can be applied.
Yeah, it's real interesting. It's very creative, like being able to see something work over here and then sort of like realize how it can be applied over in another area. Is that sort of how you guys work through like problem identification, or are you mainly reacting to things that are brought to you guys by, suppliers or clients? How does that work?
It's a little bit of a mix, to be honest. Of course, direct client feedback, direct supplier feedback, of course, that helps guide things, particularly client feedback for obvious reasons. I think with the trial and error, that is also where AI really comes in these days, is we can get to that trial and error piece and kind of get through that phase much more quickly than before. As I said, it takes us now hours or a day to build a product and see if it works or not, and then if it doesn't, try again, whereas previously that took a lot of kind of engineers to build something, whereas we don't need to kind of use that time anymore. So I think being transparent, it is a lot of client demand. Ultimately, it's the clients that pay the bills, and therefore, if they say they want this feature for whatever reason, or there's some, process causing a bit of a pain point, we're looking to solve that, of course. But yeah, there is a bit of trial and error sometimes as well. Look, I think we've tried products that haven't always worked or haven't had the take up that we thought they might do. Maybe, we thought they were really exciting, but then from the outside, not as much. So it's not that everything is a success. But as I said, where the AI comes in now is actually we can kind of at least get to that point and have a bit of a trial and error phase much faster and with much less resources than we did before. But yeah, client feedback is still probably the primary source, truth be told.
I think that's kind of the beauty of it, because you don't have to have been around for 40 years or something like that. You talk every day with people who have been. And so, if you sort of understand your technology side and then you can understand their business as they explain it, you can then spot where there's need for improvement.
Yeah, exactly. And every day is a school day. And I think even Vivi and Carolina, who are our two co-founders, I think that one of the best things about them is they understand they don't know everything, and they're quite happy to learn from people within AltoVita or other kind of industry experts and bring that in. There's certainly no kind of ego in doing that. And I think that's also what's helped AltoVita get to where we are today and kind of keep moving forward. It's that sort of a progress not perfection piece that I put in one of my quotes. So it's very much true at AltoVita. It is kind of trying to keep learning and understanding that even though we've learned a lot, we still don't know it all. Plus, everything else is moving so fast in the technology space. Someone on the other side of the world could build something that, again, we can maybe use a part of to help our processes. So, it's an ongoing journey, especially these days with technology that's moving so quickly.
I like to kind of keep a few questions close to the vest, and I don't tell them to you ahead of time. This is one of those. So you go to plenty of conferences, you rub shoulders with plenty of other people in plenty of different industries, that are sort of adjacent to what you guys do. I was wondering, with relocation sort of in view, where does the relocation industry, the global mobility industry, need to innovate still? Like, where do you see opportunity outside of just temp housing, for the relocation industry to transform?
I think we have some great service providers in the relocation industry, but I still think we're all working a little bit siloed. We still, a lot of the time, don't have enough kind of service provider to service provider connectivity. Of course, that's where companies like NEI come in, but appreciative, your teams are still managing a lot of different providers. That seems to be, there isn't this sort of like one connected solution. And again, I know that's probably more of a challenge for NEI, because that's ultimately something you are also trying to build. But sometimes it's not, we're not always the best at sharing kind of where things work for us. Of course, sometimes we have competitors, but there's still not that sort of one fully connected ecosystem. Of course, as I said, that's what AltoVita are trying to build in terms of temp accommodation. But of course, we don't do immigration. We don't do shipping. So at some point, I think we probably will see, whether it's AltoVita or others, trying to have that, I guess, sideways connection, as opposed to not just kind of like supply chain line connection. As well. So that's definitely something, because I think that happens in other industries probably a bit more than it does in relocation. I also think relocation overall is still, I think, a relatively kind of traditional industry. There's, as I said, a lot of people kind of bringing tech to the fore at the moment. But I think because ultimately relocation is a people business, it needs to still have one foot strongly rooted in the fact that they're dealing with people and families, and it's not just about costs and technology. It's about an employee's daughter changing schools in the middle of the school year, which can be quite stressful, or I don't know, a vase that's actually although maybe not monetarily expensive, is a family sort of heirloom, sentimental, gets broken in transit sort of thing. So it's still always about the people, and therefore it's always still going to remain a bit traditional. So I can talk about the tech all day long, but ultimately it still comes down to the people at the end of the day, and that's always going to keep it quite grounded, which is also quite nice. And sometimes I think that's where I would say other sectors like banking maybe have lost touch a bit sometimes, that they're dealing with people, and that's what I do like about the relocation industry as well. So it's a two-sided thing. There can be more connectivity, but equally the focus on the people is still there, which is great.
I don't know if this bothers other people, but I love the complexity of that. I love the fact that there's not just a straight answer to how do you balance this sort of tech integration, integrating teams, and really keeping the humanity in this very human process. For me, that's exciting because I just love problems to solve, and relocation it's a big problem to solve.
Yeah, I couldn't put it better myself. It is very much a continuously changing puzzle when you have so many moving parts from someone who's moving from, I don't know, Sydney to New York or wherever they're going. Exactly that. There's always something that needs solving, or there's always something that can be improved. But yeah, that's also what attracted me into relocation in the first place. To be honest, is also just trying to help people by solving these problems. And in a perfect world, everything would go smoothly and go as it was planned, but that just doesn't happen when you're moving people across borders. When there's so many services to coordinate, it's just not realistic, sadly. But I think where companies like ours and others in the industry come in is like how we react to that and how we support when things don't go quite right. And that's ultimately what everything we're doing is for, is to just make those lives a bit easier while they're going through this change.
When I got out of college, you just look at these giant corporations and you're like, oh, they must have it together. They're big. And working in the corporate space for a good while now, you realize, no, there are no perfect companies. What really matters is, can you be honest with yourself as a company about who you are? And really, are you going to challenge yourself to strive for what your company needs to be? That's where you find good companies who can identify and say, hey, you know what? We're not perfect. There is no perfect company, but this is what we know that we have to be in order to succeed and rightly serve our clients. And then when you can get companies like that working together, that's, I feel like, where you create like really outsized value for the client.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what we quite happily experience in a lot of sometimes the RFPs and new clients, especially during the onboarding process, where essentially we're talking about, okay, well, the client will say, this is where we are, this is where we'd like to get to. It might not be that we can get there in 3 months, it might take 3 years, but it is always exciting to have those conversations to go, okay, well, we want to improve this for our employees and likely we'll get here, and then we'll want to set a new plan and kind of keep going forward again. And I think the best companies to work for are those ones that understand that, and again are just kind of focusing on, okay, let's look at this process, we can improve that, okay, that one is now improved, on to the next, and kind of keep moving forward that way. It's that kind of marginal improvement over time. It does add up ultimately. I think that's also where, again, we quite enjoy that process, because we are, as I said, quite an agile company and like trying to sort of build new features and new solutions, because that's kind of, again, part of, I guess, AltoVita's sort of ethos. So that's certainly, I think, where our team get excited, because it comes back to that problem solving piece. Is like, okay, well, we've got all these tools where we can try and build something quickly and try it out and see if it works. So when there's a company that kind of comes with that mindset, it is quite exciting.
For us, it's like, we love the concept of blurring the lines where people are working across teams, across companies with different teams, and you can really like work as one team. But I think the challenge to that is finding companies that you want to blur lines with, right? There's got to be that like culture match.
Exactly. And obviously I work for AltoVita. I'd love to say AltoVita would fit in with every company, but that is also just not the way of the world either. So yeah, you're exactly right. You do need a mindset shift. And I think that's where global mobility teams, travel teams, hopefully when they're looking, which provider they want to work with, I always hope that's kind of what they are looking for. They're not necessarily just looking at kind of where, what is that partner doing right now. I think it's more important to look at, okay, does this partner have the same kind of culture as our company? Because if that's a yes, it's not that it's irrelevant where they are. You still need to have a sort of, the capabilities, of course, but I think you can achieve much more by having the same mindset, even, versus maybe one with the wrong mindset that's already maybe a little bit further down the road in terms of scale or product or whatever it might be. That's certainly an approach we kind of look to have as well. I know, we obviously kind of want to win as many new clients as we can, but we also appreciate sometimes if it's not the right match, that's not going to benefit kind of either party, and that's okay. There's different companies are good at some things and others aren't, and again, that's absolutely okay. So yeah, the mindset is very important. The mindset and culture match becomes, I think, vital, and then if you connect the two, that's where it's like a really, really powerful thing.
Yeah, it's definitely something I had to learn, and not just partner to partner, but that's really the conversation you're having for us when we're talking to new clients. When they come to us with their relocation needs, we're not just looking to gain a new client, we're also looking for a great fit, because we understand that relationship, it can sometimes be, I think our like average client tenure is like 12 years. So you're choosing almost like a 12-year partnership there. And we've had service partner relationships as well as client relationships that have persisted since we were founded. And so it's pretty crazy when people talk about it being a relationship business. Sometimes I think that's glossed over, or we throw that in there because we semi-understand it, but that's what we mean, right? Is that these relationships are, for the context of the relationship, is to do work, and that work has to span years.
Yeah, exactly. And when you have that stability over, with a client or with a supplier, both, hopefully, that's when you can really kind of look at the long term, like where as a kind of business or where for this, supply chain vertical, where do we want to get to? And those things take time. Even with AI, it still takes time to, refine things and see what works, because, we all have to do this around the actual, day-to-day of moving people. So yeah, that's very, very beneficial. And I think we would agree, right? It's going to be more beneficial having, 10 clients for 10 years than maybe 20 that then all change after 2, because you're not going to be able to develop with that client, customize things, kind of grow a program together if it's kind of cycling out. Because I said that building a strategy does take time, refining a process takes time to know, does this work? Could this be improved? Okay, well, even if it's working well, what's the next step? You can't do that immediately when you're talking about, global programs. It's just not possible. So yeah, the long-term partnership is super, super important.
Let's put some meat on that. So I want to now talk about what we've done together, particularly over the last year or so in AltoCore. So
yes,
that was a really interesting opportunity, and I think there's a lot of people really happy with the result. Do you just want to give what happened, what we made, and why it's really impacting the relocation industry right now?
Yeah, delighted to. I mean, so I will start from the start where the NEI team essentially came to us and said, look, we have our temp accommodation process. It's a little bit fragmented, kind of similar to others using kind of multiple agencies, but without one kind of overarching sort of process and way of doing things. And I think your team had recognized that ultimately there was a lot of double effort going in that was using your time, using your AE's time, which took them away from doing the people aspects, actually talking to your clients, talking to their employees. So we were approached to go, okay, can you essentially build something that allows us to structure this process, save time, reduce email traffic, essentially get the requests out quicker to clients. And that's where AltoCore came in. Now, we of course had our own kind of internal system, but this kind of like external system, AltoCore, which is what NEI are now using, was really kind of built with your team. So we actually kind of started with our internal system. Really, we went through it with your team. You provided literally direct feedback of okay, well, we need this extra feature added. So it was little things like we need a tick box to allow us to show pricing to the guest. In some instances, we need this extra feature to forward something on to a client. We need this other feature because our team need this other approval layer for this particular client. So it was really getting quite granular into building out the specifics within this tool, and kind of morphed from where we were into this completely whole new thing that didn't exist before, and then was obviously rolled out to your teams. Now, even since they started it, other things kind of have come up since then. As I said, I was talking about the match criteria. That's something that your team suggested and we built together. There's been other kind of client specifics that we've then customized to now where it's kind of a really, I think, well-oiled machine. And even just looking at the metrics, I think the number of emails that kind of go into a particular request have kind of dropped by about half. The timings and turnaround have dropped by about 20% in terms of like how long it takes from making a request to making a booking. As I said, we continue to have a lot of these other features just to, again, reduce the time and email traffic. So it's allowed us both to kind of grow in terms of volumes without having to do that by just purely adding headcount. So it's just made the whole process, I think, a lot quicker and a lot more efficient. And it's not something that, as far as I'm aware, the kind of relocation industry has had before, in terms of that kind of like completely customized build between a supplier and the client, which is NEI in this case, and have that really direct input into building this. Now, of course, there's some features that we've obviously been able to kind of roll out across our kind of like wider network, of course, because it's still if it's benefit to the NEI team, there's no reason why some of these things can't be a benefit to others, which has obviously been fantastic for us as well. So yeah, it's been quite revolutionary, I think, and we're obviously hoping that others might see that as well and start to use it. But it was all really born out of the self-identification that from NEI, I think that they could go, look, there's a better way here, even though nothing was necessarily broken. It was just like, how can we do this better? And again, allow our teams then to kind of come out of the admin process and step back into the people process. Ultimately was what the goal, and I think together we achieved that over kind of the past 12-18 months.
And if anyone's interested, you did a great talk with Derek Gregeth on the whole thing, and we'll try and put a link in the description. But just to kind of double back on some of those points, like speed matters in booking accommodation, because if you don't get it in quick, there's other people that are looking at that, and exactly. So it may not be available. The rates may change. There's a lot of reasons why this platform, having all the available options present and visible, and that you can get all the information you need in order to make a decision quicker, that really does have client impact in quite a real substantial way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, yeah, of course, the availability does change. The faster we can get those options back to, the employee that's moving to wherever they're moving to, the better chance they have of getting the property they like. That is a very direct impact here. So, if we're sending an option and the technology allows them to make a request faster, that directly benefits them. We've added other features, again, with your teams where they can actually also add backup options just in case things aren't booked. So again, there's no time wasted if something has been booked elsewhere, because of our integrations as well. Properties can actually kind of then be automatically hidden if the availability changes. Because we still appreciate that even though, they still want the options quickly, they might be on a business trip, they might be doing something else or just tied up in their own work and might not have a chance to look at it until the weekend or whatever it might be. So I think things happen. But yeah, there's been tangible benefits, hopefully to the employees, but also I think to the clients, because we've also have all the pricing, which is super transparent on the system. We're tracking the budgets with your clients as well. So this kind of allows your account managers as well to then pick out the information they need in their conversations and to go, okay, actually, let's look at I know everyone talks about temporary accommodation and it can be quite a costly part of the kind of relocation as a whole. But I think with some of the other tools that we've built with your team, kind of tracking the daily rates and benchmarking against market rates, benchmarking them against client budgets, it's also allowing your teams to go, hi, client contact, here's the actual sort of tangible financial benefit of this program to you by, here are the savings. We can see that you are kind of beating the market average in New York or London or wherever it might be. So there's that side as well. So yeah, I mean, we obviously, we're all kind of working to hopefully show that benefit to the client at the end of the day. And I definitely think we've achieved that.
And clients are certainly happy when they can have more information in the full context. Are there any challenges though, when you're talking about, building these technologies? I know there are challenges, but I was wondering if maybe you can explain some of those challenges that you guys run into and maybe how you overcome them.
Yeah, of course. The biggest challenge, I know it's actually quite a general one, which is just the variety. Every client is different. We talk about that. Every client has different culture, which means they have different priorities and different demands. We get a very, very wide breadth of requirements, and I know your DAEs that we speak to at NEI are the same. So it is sometimes a challenge of going, okay, well, this one client wants this one thing, but how's that going to fit into the kind of whole process? We don't want to change everything that might be to the detriment of sort of 10 clients just for the one. So it's finding that right balance. In very practical terms, on the other side with our supply chain, it's something I mentioned before. As I said, we're trying to kind of integrate with as much of our supply chain as possible so that we can really provide as much kind of live availability and live pricing as possible. The challenge there, again, is just the variety of systems that suppliers use. I mean, we work with, I think, 4,500 different property partners. It's not like they're all using one system. And it is a challenge to work out how we can integrate with different systems as well. But certainly on the client facing side, it's just the variety. There's some very specific requirements that we sometimes receive, whether it's for reporting or kind of invoicing things that have to be kind of connected up. So that can be a challenge sometimes, but we yet sort of find something that we 100% cannot do. It's just sometimes how long it can take to do it, and whether that is creating a new tool, adding some extra feature. It's usually possible, but sometimes can take a bit more time than others.
Man, in my mind, challenges are good. That's why we have jobs.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, it's what you were saying earlier. It's the problem solving. It comes back to the problem solving piece. And every client's going to continue to have their kind of demands, which will challenge us both. I've no doubt.
I got some fun questions for you, Tom. You ready?
I'm ready.
These ones you've not seen.
Okay, super.
All right. What's a recent tech or cultural trend that you think is overrated?
Oh, live logging. Like, no interest in it. It's just, I think,
you don't like that?
No. Too many people, I think, just on their phones walking around the streets. It's not one for me. I like the real interaction. I think it takes away from that a little bit, in my opinion. Maybe it's just because I'm a millennial and we didn't have that when I was younger, but that's not one for me.
Hey Ben, cancel my live vlogging session later today. What's one invention that you think does not get enough credit?
Oh, that is it. That is a good one. I don't know, actually. What is the one invention that doesn't get enough credit? I don't know. Maybe the dog. We engineered dogs. Dogs are pretty good. So maybe
Before you answer that question, I think it's crazy now that we have essentially jetpacks. I just can't own one yet, but I don't think we're talking enough about the fact that we're all going to get jetpacks here soon.
Yeah, a jetpack would be pretty cool. I think there's other things like mobility things. You can get sort of automated legs, which basically mean you can kind of just run and jump and walk further pretty unassisted. They're pretty cool. Although jetpack would immediately trump that. They're potentially a bit more dangerous. There's probably quite a lot
all
of
the fun things in life are dangerous, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I'm not sure. I mean, I still think that I still find it amazing that you can charge a mobile phone without having to plug it in. That still boggles my mind. I still think that's great, and that's a really small one just because I find it super convenient.
You know what's funny though? It's like for all the things that we've made, I don't think we'd trade any of it for plumbing.
That's true. That's true. I mean, Wi-Fi's pretty good. Wi-Fi's pretty
Or like
good.
air conditioning, depending on where you live.
Well, yeah, again, that's yet to make it to the UK for the most part. So maybe that's something that I will be saying if you ask me that same question next year.
All right. So did you have an answer?
I'm not sure. I find this quite tricky. You know, it's really boring, but something like Bluetooth is actually never talked about, but it's super handy. Even just like we're both wearing headsets, mine's wired, but like you go to the gym, you're using Bluetooth for your phone. Like you can now cast stuff like Bluetooth to TVs and stuff. It's one of those things that I think has become very boring and everyday, but it's
like
actually quite amazing. That's what I think. So maybe Bluetooth, which again is a bit of a boring answer, but actually the amount it's used, we just take it for granted. And again, you go back, I don't know, to when I was a kid 20 years ago, it's like, well, no, you just seemed like magic back then when you're plugging in your Walkman.
For sure. All right, so what's a piece of technology that you used as a kid, but it now feels ancient?
Well, a Walkman. I had a tape, the tape ones. They don't know it, like no one has those anymore. Even any kind of music device. So going from your Walkman to your CD player to your iPod, none of it exists anymore. So those just disappeared, which is always a bit of a shame.
I was trying to think about that one. It was tough for me. Yeah, like, all right, I'm going to say this. It's not too long ago, but like manual transmissions have almost disappeared everywhere. You have to get like a really nice high-end car now to get a manual transmission. And I always loved driving manuals.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Even in Europe's when I think we still hang on a little bit to the manual. It is slowly going. But you're right, it's going to go on those things I think where manual is then the luxury. But again, that's probably happened again with horses are now a luxury, right? Whereas horses used to be the way of getting around. I think manual transmission is exactly that. Going to be for the nice cars that you want a bit more involvement in.
If I ever get like a huge fat raise or something like that, I'll be riding a horse to work just because.
Just to show off, yeah. That would be a flex. That would be a flex.
Oh, man. Okay. All right. These ones I'm actually really interested in what you're going to say. So if you had to start a company, it's like a startup, not AltoVita or outside that ecosystem, what would it be?
I would open kind of a fusion between like a sort of a independent sort of beer tap room and like a kind of golf studio. So like a sort of indoor sort of driving range sort of thing, but then also had like a bar with loads of like really nice independent beers. And that's mainly because I like golf and I like going out for a nice beer. So I would kind of combine the two. I'm not sure how good it is to practice your golf while drunk, but I imagine it'd be relatively popular. And there's a few places like that, but I always think that'd be quite cool because I'm like, okay, well, my business is then just two things I enjoy. The challenge though is how much hard work I would do if, would I just be the one at the bar? And I'm not sure that's necessarily the best tactic if you're the business owner.
That seems really doable.
It is very doable, but again, trying to be a bit healthy. I'm not sure drinking a whole ton of beer and golfing all day is the best thing for me. But maybe one day, maybe that's what you'll see me doing one day.
What would your hiring approach be? Would you get Rory McIlroy to come over and work at your pub?
I'm not sure I'd have the budget for Rory McIlroy, but maybe. I'd probably just try and rope some of my friends in because I think that would be quite fun. But otherwise, I think it would just have to be someone else that is also just generally passionate about those sort of things that takes an interest, because otherwise I would find it difficult to kind of engage with them. And I think if I had customers doing, that wanted to come to our business, I want to work with someone who is also going to kind of like get excited when they're speaking to those people as well. So otherwise the business won't kind of thrive. So yeah, I'd probably look at that. Thinking about employing my friends, probably the less of a good idea it is actually, because again, I think they would just be at the bar more than be of much use. But yeah, someone who's also passionate about the same things that I am.
So probably not much AI use then.
No, probably not. Well, there might maybe for back end stuff, reordering of barrels of beer when they're running low, but beyond that, not so much.
Yeah. All right. So switch it up. If you had to buy a company, money's no object, what would you buy, and does that change your answers about hiring and AI and stuff like that?
So as it buy a specific like real company or a type of company?
Let's go with a real company.
I mean, if I could buy a real company, it would probably be either Ducati or Ferrari, just because it's cool. Like, I mean, if you could be the owner of Ferrari, I could go to, I could have a Ferrari, drive a Ferrari, go to the Formula One races. That'd be quite cool. And similarly for Ducati for motorbikes, but I think there'll be more vanity projects potentially. But I still think the hiring process will still be the same. You want people that are passionate about bikes or cars in your company, or passionate about an engineer who's actually passionate about designing an engine or whatever it might be within those companies. You still need people that I think care about what they're doing at the end of the day. And I don't think that changes with the industry. I think that's just universal.
I feel like if I owned Ferrari, I would definitely use relocation though. I'd be like, just give me the best guy because these cars are babies.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You just need the best person there. Also, like, I don't think you'll have a tough time finding people that want to come work for you either, though.
No, I think the challenge might be weeding out the people who genuinely care about what they're going to be doing and people who just kind of would like to be around Ferraris. I think that would be the challenge.
Like
the
me,
challenge there.
you know?
I'll give you a job, Zach. Don't worry about that. We can have one special position. Just to
I'll be in marketing.
we can be testing, whatever. I don't mind.
Yeah, that's funny. That was the end of my fun questions. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, I suppose potentially if you could, I don't know, let's have a think. Yeah, if you could, I think, have one wish and say, I want to do this profession, and not necessarily just because it pays really well. So like the money is not a thing. You go, okay, I'm going to wave a magic wand. What's your kind of like ultimate job? So you still have to do a job, but the money isn't a factor. Every job kind of pays the same. You still have your food and family taken care of. So what would you be doing if in that situation?
Man, okay, so I probably would have answered this differently 5-7 years ago, right? For a while, I actually really wanted to be a pastor, you know?
Yes.
And it's not that I would withdrawn from that interest so much, but it's more just like expanding my concept of what kind of impact I could have, right? And so I think that I would just be looking for something that has just ridiculous impact, like ridiculous ability to like bless others in the world. Like, all right, I'll give you one of my favorite like company, or not companies, but there's a 501c3 called Charity Water, and I was hooked. It was like the first time I ever watched a commercial that was like 19 minutes long. Like just straight through, like you're like, wow, this is incredible. And so that was really like awesome. And I think that just inspired me to, man, if I could do something that has that kind of impact, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would do. I'd probably, I got ideas, but I think that would be so cool to me because I don't think I would have a problem working 100 hours a week if it was for something like that. You know what I mean?
That's a beautiful answer. I think anytime when people are making impact, it doesn't necessarily always feel like work. And then even when it does, it has a sort of a bigger purpose that you can kind of work through. And I wonder if kind of part of that is kind of the pasta piece is why you're, I guess, also good at the podcast, because it's kind of that voice and trying to get a message out there and kind of, I guess, spread the love, in this case for relocation. But I guess there's some overlap potentially with being a pastor there.
Yeah, I definitely love people. You know, as many avenues as I can get to where I can express that, it makes me happy.
Yeah, in the right industry, I think if you like people, I think that's what relocation's about.
Yep. Well, Tom, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate you kind of just joining us.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and yeah, always a pleasure.
Well, that was another episode of Relocation Leader, and we will see you back in 2 weeks. Don't forget to share, subscribe, do all the things, and yeah, hopefully that you had a good time.
This has been Relocation Leader, the podcast where we help advanced professionals in the world of global mobility. Listen back here every 2 weeks for a new episode on NEIReload.com or on your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next time.